Very nice to see everyone this morning. I'm going to start off in 2007. This story really begins on January 9th when Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone to the world.
An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not three separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. And here it is. No. Actually, here it is, but we're going to leave it there for now.
So we all know what happened next. This is a graph of iPhone sales starting in 2007. Up and to the right. I mean, I'm looking around. I wonder how many people here were even teenagers when this was announced. It seems like probably a few people perhaps weren't. But I remember before the iPhone, and I think really what they reinvented that day was not the phone, but the computer. It's infiltrated every aspect of our lives, on a good day, sometimes twice. And before long, smartphones were everywhere. You saw them everywhere. How many people are holding one right now? Yeah, probably about half the room. So I'm sure it comes as no surprise to anyone here that it's just a revolutionary change in the computing landscape. So by 2015, just a few years later, the smartphone had surpassed desktop-class devices in pretty much any category you cared to measure. So anything from number of units shipped, to amount of time spent on the device, to search, email, on and on. If you just look at shipments, you can see that years ago, mobile computers surpassed desktop computers dramatically in shipments alone. And when you think about the capabilities of these devices, they're far more capable in many ways than their desktop predecessors. Way more sensors, just crawling with sensors. They're with us all the time. They're always on. They're virtually always connected. And the opportunity there is dramatically bigger because they're more powerful and they're with us all the time. And while the desktop is sort of tethered to the wall, like people of a certain age might remember phones used to be. We had this long cord, and you'd hide in the closet so your parents couldn't hear you talking to your friends. To me, that's the way the old, like the desktop computing paradigm, that's the way it kind of exists in my mind. And the mobile computers are really a dramatic improvement over that. But it's not just bigger than desktop computing. Mobile is the most adopted technology of all time. In fact, I think this happened in 2012, where mobile had reached more people globally than electricity or bank accounts or toothbrushes or even pens and pencils. And this was, math is not my thing, 4 years ago, coming up on 2017. So looking into the future, 2020, the predictions are, and they look like they're going to come true, that smartphones, the number of smartphones in use will double from 2 billion to about 4 billion, while desktop computers will stay at around 1.4, 1.5, 1.6 billion. So desktop is kind of flat, and there's this just new wave of computing, this whole new wave of computing that is dramatically overtaking it. Not replacing it per se, but just overtaking it in the same way that TV kind of overtook radio. Radio's still there, but it's just not where the focus is. Certainly wasn't once TV caught on. So this means in the next few years, 80% of adults worldwide are going to have a connected supercomputer in their pocket. The iPhone or Android device that you have on you right now had more computing power than NASA had when they put men on the moon. And everybody just sort of takes it for granted and drops them on the ground and smashes them, like, oh, I'll just get a new one. used to take up an entire building, and now it fits in your pocket. So what I'm driving at here is that the desktop is basically over. It's peaked. It's not gonna, I can't imagine any scenario when it picks back up. I think Steve Jobs really nailed it when he said that the desktops are, we'll still need them, but they're kind of like trucks, and most people just need a car. And multi-touch devices like, of course, products that his company make, will be the car in the computing space. And he seemed to be right. So what's interesting about this, especially for this room, for all of us, is that the browser becomes a bit of a casualty here. Because if you think about a web browser and the activity of browsing the web, it originated in something that looked basically like this. Does anybody not know what this is? No one doesn't know what this is, although I'm sure many of you never saw it before, because it still kind of looks the same. I mean, this is ugly, but it still has all the things that even a mobile browser has. It has all the things that a desktop browser has. It's got back and forward buttons, it's got a URL bar, it's got status indicator, it's got cookies, it's got history. The idea of browsing the web originated on the desktop, and the behavior of browsing the web originated on the desktop. How many people here do regularly some sort of design for mobile? Show of hands. Okay, I want to see all the hands next year. Because for folks who have been doing mobile, you know that shoehorning a desktop website down into a phone-sized screen is a disaster. It's forced march to hell. It's the worst. You can't do that. You have to rethink it. You have to build from mobile first with progressive enhancement and have a responsive design that then works on the desktop. But in general, mobile is just flat out different. It's just not the same thing. It's not just that the size is different. It's a completely different thing. We use it in different ways in different places at different times for different things than we ever did with the desktop. So, okay, pop quiz. Who can tell me what's super radical about this picture? Any guesses? Just shout it out. Any idea?
Still using headphones?
Good one. We're going to get to that. Good one.
Wi-Fi and stuff.
Oh, pretty good. Cell signal. Yeah. Okay. So we're getting there. We're getting there. I think certainly the ubiquity of the connection is a big deal. But the thing that really blows my mind about this, the thing that I think is the fundamental change that people don't notice, is that there's a dude computing while he's standing up with one hand. We never did that before, ever, before the iPhone, really. BlackBerry, maybe. But up until 2007, the entire history of computing, which is maybe at that point, I guess about 30 or 40 years, happened like this. You're sitting down, facing a big screen. You had a physical typing device, a keyboard of some kind, pointing device of some kind, probably a mouse. You had a stable power supply. You had, once a connection started to happen, you had a reliable internet connection. Once the iPhone came around, oh, and you had both hands. You're using both hands. Once the iPhone came around, all of a sudden, boop, 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 I'm computing, check me out. All the time, we're computing. Doesn't feel like that because it's so easy, but it moved to a new posture. We got a new computing posture, which allowed it to move. It's not just the fact that it's connected all the time, because laptops are more or less, you can have them connected all the time. But I think a laptop is a portable device, it's not a mobile device. Because you don't ever see anybody standing in line at Starbucks with a laptop open. I guess that's probably, you should never say never, right? But I've probably done it, actually. But you see people all the time with their phone out, all the time, everywhere. I mean, in case you don't notice it, just look around on your way out for lunch. Every other person, if not more, will have a phone in their hand. Sweet, we're done. This is the pinnacle of computing, right? We'll never have to get anything better than an iPhone or an Android phone or this, 4.5-inch to 6-inch glowing rectangle that we have in our pockets. Of course, that's ridiculous. We have not reached the pinnacle of computing, as amazing as they are, especially for older folks like me who remember, black and white TV. I remember being bored. Can you imagine? But there's still lots of things, as amazing as they are, there's still lots of things that they can't do or times when you can't use them. And you might think, oh, well, I hardly ever do that stuff. But in fact, we do that stuff all the time. Anytime you're doing something that involves both hands or a lot of water or something you need to actually pay attention to, like, I don't know, something like this, for example, or millions of, what even is that? I don't know, but the point is there are actually lots of times when we're still disconnected because we can't use the phone unless we've got at least an eyeball available and at least one hand available. So if you look around for these sorts of things, they actually happen more regularly than you might think, because you probably already feel like you're on your phone too much, or other people are on their phones too much. But in fact, I think people like being connected. They like having access to their superpowers in the cloud. A piece of your brain is up there. I got in the cab from the airport to come here, and they were like, "Where are you going?" I was like, I have no idea. Hold on. Let me check. I don't have to remember the name of the hotel. I don't have to remember the address. I just look it up on my phone. One time in Boston, in fact, I got on the train, went up to Boston, went to a meeting, couldn't get a cell signal to save my life, and I just couldn't go to the meeting. I had no idea where I was. I'm just walking around Boston looking for open Wi-Fi. And it was like brain damage in a sense, because we've started to, at least I have started to outsource pieces of my brain, my family history. All of my family photos are in Dropbox. All of my email is in Gmail. If I lost that, I would be like, all of my customer contracts, I don't have any of that stuff. They're not printed out, you know? So we're going to want more of this, because when we're disconnected from it, it feels like something's wrong. It feels like it's almost like damage. So it's hard to imagine what might come after the smartphone, because it's so ubiquitous and so successful. So I'm going to play a really short sci-fi kind of concept video of a future where we're even more connected than we are now, that I think illustrates some of the use cases.
Good job. Excellent. Well done. Level complete.
Welcome.
Anyway, I hope you're hungry. This
Yeah.
place has the best burgers in town.
Oh, actually, I'm vegetarian.
Oh,
Yeah.
Really? Because you didn't say it on your profile, so.
there it is. Make yourself at home.
Nice place you've got here.
It's alright, I guess.
So an augmented reality contact lens is way in the future, if we ever even get there, for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is battery. But if you take away the visuals of that and you just imagine that you have a device on you or near you that's listening, and notice he never explicitly talked to the thing, it just was listening and did stuff for him, including the display. But I think there's a state before that, if we ever get there, that's got a lot of the same qualities. So anybody know what this is? Lots of people. Amazon Echo. Okay, so this is a device that is powered by Amazon's virtual assistant, which is called Alexa. And you put it in your house somewhere or in your office, or if you're like me, you put it in pretty much every room you have, and you just talk to it, kind of like Star Trek. You know, it's like, Alexa, what's the weather today? Alexa, what time is it? Alexa, set an alarm. Alexa, what's, you know, math? Da, 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 da. I've got little kids, they're asking it math problems. They're asking it, you know, is Santa real? You gotta watch out for that one. But this is so popular, and it's so good. I mean, I love it. I have it all the time. In the hotel, I keep finding myself going, Alexa, I wish I had it with me. But this is so popular that they're selling them in 6-packs. And you can get them for $40 each for a connected, voice-enabled, awesome device. It's a voice-enabled computer, a screenless computer, which is kind of one of the things I'm driving at here. And it's not just Amazon. Google announced at Google I/O earlier this year that they're making a direct competitor called Google Home that's going to be powered by the Google Assistant, which was kind of like what Google Now was, as far as I can tell. And in fact, I think on Wednesday there's going to be a big announcement about this, so stay tuned. Apple, of course, announced AirPods, if you can see that. So this is a sort of different take on it, but it's still conversational computing where you're talking to these wireless earbuds that are, connected to the phone in your pocket and having Siri do things for you or answer questions for you. So there's a user experience there that's wildly unlike things that web developers normally do, which is, we've got this rectangle and maybe it's a stretchy rectangle and we have to sort of rearrange the furniture inside of this rectangle. This is a new style of computing that enables the next posture, in my opinion, which is the hands-free, eyes-free posture. So what does all this have to do with the web? I think we need to start thinking outside the browser, which I suppose is a good thing to do at a show called Web Unleashed. The browser is just one window into the web. So we work on the web. It's a place. The browser is just a window into it. And we're going to start getting more and more windows into it. And one of them is going to be screenless. So there's all this content and service, all of our content and services, our web goodness, all the things that we do, people are going to want them in their ear, on their kitchen table, and in their car. So of course the web is in people's phones, in their browser, but we want to think outside of that. It's also inside popular applications like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Pinterest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, sort of baked in there. But it's also in interactive push notifications, and you can see it in home screen widgets on Android and in the iOS Notification Center widgets in the drawer that comes down. There are Siri results that access web content, Google Now cards or assistant cards, whatever they're going to call them next. So the web is kind of breaking out of the browser already on the phone into the surrounding operating system, which is a much better place to be, actually, because it's sort of out of the browser ghetto, if you will. It's at a higher level. It's been promoted in the operating system. It's also in your watch. Now, there's no browser on the watch, but the watch certainly accesses web content and services. And I don't think the watch is going to replace smartphones or anything like that, but they're pretty popular. How many people have a smartwatch, Apple Watch? Yeah, pretty good. Maybe 20%. I've got a few of them. I like them. It's a nice accessory, and it enables a different kind of computing model. Web's on your TV. I'm sure a lot of people here have either Roku or Apple TV or a Chromecast or Fire TV. These things are selling in the millions, and they consume content from the web, the stuff that we make. But again, it's a very different paradigm than we're used to thinking of. That sort of 10-foot experience instead of the 1-foot experience or the 2-foot experience. How do I design an interface where I'm sitting on the couch, but the user's sitting on the couch, and I don't know if they're going to be sending input to me through voice commands over Alexa or Siri, or they're going to have a D-pad controller, or who knows what. You have no idea. So you have to program in a way that takes that into consideration, program and design. But wait, there's more. By the end of 2016, every single American car manufacturer is going to have a model that either supports Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, and many support both. So there are 50 manufacturers that Google partnered with globally, and CarPlay from Apple is available in over 100 models of cars already. And we can't have a talk about the future without talking about the Internet of Things and your stuff. As sensors get smaller and cheaper and faster and more battery efficient, power efficient, it's going to become economically feasible to put them in almost anything. A doorknob, a hinge, a hammer, a guitar. I mean, if it's pennies, why not? Because then you add it to the thing, and the thing gets connected, and now it's got superpowers. It can tell you you're out of tune, or it can tell you that somebody opened your door. The list goes on. So in my house alone, we have lights that are connected to the internet that I can control with Alexa, which is the best thing ever. Oh man, it's fabulous. Falling asleep, like, oh, Alexa, shut off the bedroom lights. It's the greatest. Thermostats, we've got security cameras that send me text messages, locks, the list goes on. This is all stuff that we are going to be called on to design for and to build for. Because I think web professionals, we're a rare breed. We're used to operating in very volatile programming environment. You know, the browser wars, and like IE6, and now Edge, and like mobile browsers, and we're used to this. We're used to not knowing what the heck's going to happen when we put our thing out there, if it's going to break, how it's going to break. So I think we're actually really well positioned to take a step beyond the browser, beyond the phone even, into these UX situations that are either cross-device or screenless or micro interactions like on a watch or an interactive notification. The problem is, what's happening is, as computing, or the opportunity, I guess, is that as computing leaves the counter or the desk and goes into everybody's pockets, the computing surface, the kind of universe of computing, when computing happens, turns into all the time. We're pretty much always connected. So what that means is the lines between meat space and cyberspace are getting blurrier and blurrier and blurrier. So as we get more connected, as the connection gets closer and closer to our brain, it's going to get super gray. And we're going to have to come up with ways to specialize. In my opinion, I think we have to specialize if you want to remain relevant. It's fun to be like a jack of all trades and try new things all the time, and that's good. I think that's good. But to always do a different thing on every project, just be a generalist in what was a small pond, that was fine. But now the pond is turning into an ocean. And trying to keep up with JavaScript frameworks alone is a full-time job. Never mind all of these other things. So I think it's pretty important you want to learn your tools, and you want to know what's out there, and you want to make choices about them. But I think when it comes to making an impact, specializing in a particular thing to be extra good at is going to be a critical skill if you want to sort of not be in competition with Upwork and Fiverr for the rest of your life. So there are a couple of ways to specialize. I'm just going to pick two. There are many. One way is to specialize in a particular kind of skill. So you could say I'm a React developer. If you need a React developer, I'm the best React developer. I'm like one of the best. You could do a lot of different things. You could be, web typography could be your thing. Canvas games, or WebGL, or SVG. You could be amazing at this one thing, and you've got a lot of other skills, but you're amazing at this one thing. You go really deep on this one technology. And that'll allow you to, first of all, attract clients or employers who know that they need that, which is a great thing, who value that thing, and it will allow you to deliver more value to those constituents, whether they're employers or clients. You can do better stuff faster because you know the tool inside out. So a lot of people don't like this idea when I say it to them at first because they're like, no. Or they'll say, yeah, I am specialized, but specializing in everything is not specializing. So we specialize in iOS, Android, and web development. You see that all the time. I'm sure people here probably have this on their website. That's not specializing. Unless you have a huge team and each team does, okay. But if you have a small team, it's impossible to be an expert at all three of these things. This is another one I see all the time where there's sort of hand-wavy, we solve complex problems for special people. It's not really that helpful in terms of picking between different, potential partners if you're not super specific. So I would, if a horizontal specialization is something that interests you, if I'm saying this to you and you're hearing this, oh, you know what? I know exactly what I would specialize in if I was going to do this. And that's probably a good fit. Now, sometimes this can bite you, of course. Pick a technology, so you be a little bit careful. So here are a couple that I think are super safe for developers. I think these are safe skills to go in, to become either expert at or well-known for, or both. And I'll quickly run down a couple of them. JavaScript, obviously, Atwood's laws totally come true. Anything that can be written in JavaScript will be written in JavaScript. I've seen videos of a C compiler written in JavaScript, which means anything that's written in C can run in the browser. It's pretty radical. In fact, JavaScript in general is probably too vague. You probably want to say, I'm a Node developer, I'm a back-end JavaScript developer, I'm a front-end JavaScript developer, or I'm a jQuery testing god, or whatever. Something that's like kind of specific. But JavaScript in general is a good horizontal tool because it's just everywhere. It's not going to go away for a long time. Whether you think that's good or bad, I think it's true. So the next one is content management systems. I think the way that the progression from the desktop era into the mobile era has revealed that a lot of our what we have been using as content management systems were actually web publishing tools. In fact, desktop web publishing tools. And it's really difficult when you take, say, a giant database that is full of content that was destined for the web when everyone, when the web meant a rectangle about this big, and people put data entry people were like, I know HTML, I'm gonna put some HTML in here, and some line breaks and blink and all, they put tags in it. And that was fine because if everybody had a screen this big, but then you try and create a responsive design with that same data, and now the data is just completely polluted with layout instructions for a context that isn't even the most important one anymore. So having a CMS, first of all, so the CMS thing, you could either create systems that scrub that data for people, or you create true CMS for people that organizes the data around the content instead of the presentation, the presumed presentation. And then the third one here is APIs. I think microservices seem to be the hotness now. We've been talking about service-oriented architecture for my entire adult life, but now is go time, people. We need it. If you want to create an experience, or if you're in a situation where you want to create an experience, you have a client who wants to create an experience that's multi-device, or perhaps has a voice interface, you really need to do this. It's going to be, economically, it's going to make sense to put in the extra effort to create an API. And I don't care if it's REST or SOAP or whatever, XML RPC or something new. It doesn't matter. As long as the machines can communicate with each other and the front-end team doesn't have to have a meeting with a database administrator to get access to some data. That's the thing that needs to go away. It needs to be, we need to be able to have front-end developers have access to the content and services that the client is publishing so that we can create all these different interfaces for them really quickly and maintain consistency across all. So that's the development stuff. The three obvious choices off the top of my head that I think are super valuable, be safe choices. In the design world, I think there are three big ones. One is type, because if you look around, in spite of the fact that I think the next iteration is going to be screenless, type is not going away. So and it's like the core design element of the web. I mean, if you look around, it's just type, 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 type everywhere. So being good at type is, I think, a very valuable design skill. There's some new things coming out that allow us to do some more exciting things with type, which I know folks are going to be talking about this week. So look forward to that. Responsive web design. Again, screens are going to be around for a while. Screens aren't going to just disappear overnight. And while we're going through that shift, we're just going to have more and more types and sizes and dimensions of screens. We even have round screens on some of the watches. So I think responsive web design is a core skill. It's going to be a very useful skill for years to come so that we can create interfaces that expand and contract to best utilize the space that they have. And then finally, this is the biggest one, user experience. This is going to be the Wild West for 10 years. What's the user experience when I can tell my car to come pick me up? Or what's the user experience when, what's the user experience of a light bulb or a door hinge? How do I set that up? You know, how do I get all these things right now? The setup process and the connected process is horrible. Desperately in need of some good user experience design. Desperately in need of human-centered design. And this cross-device stuff, it's just going to keep happening. There's going to be more and more cross-device experience that needs to be designed. And there's just be no end to it. I see no end to this. So that one is actually probably, like JavaScript, UX is probably too big. You probably focus down on a particular thing, like cross-device or voice interfaces or whatever floats your boat. So those are examples of horizontal specialties. Then there are some vertical specialties where you sort of maintain your jack of all trades, where people who are jack of all trades and they like that because it offers a certain kind of variety. You can specialize by going really deep on problems for a particular audience. So for me lately, it's been credit unions. So I've kind of gone deep in the credit union world for the last, 18 months. And you just get better at what you do because you understand the customer so much more. You understand the kind of problems that they're trying to solve so much better, the nuances of their business. So you can take a broad range of skills and they can present problems to you, and you can really connect dots for them because you understand their motivation. You are sort of aligned with them. And it's just another way to specialize so that you can add more value to your customers and increase your impact in the world. Again, a lot of people hate this idea of just, well, if I just specialize on dentists or whatever, first of all, I'll go out of business because there aren't enough dentists in the world for me to make a living. I'll get bored because I'll get sick of solving the same problems. And all I can really say to you is that never happens. Like, first of all, there's probably 25 dentists in walking distance from this stage right now. You'd never go out of business if you picked something like dentists. And I promise you that every single one would be wildly different. So you wouldn't get bored of it, and you would probably really love the sense of, it's not mastery, but the sense of satisfaction that you would get from crazy happy customers because you'd be able to service them really, really well. So just talking about horizontal specializations, vertical specializations, how those two things can work to serve you, to really, it's not just about your career or making money or whatever. It's more about like having a focus and being able to increase your impact, which of course will result in, a side effect of making money, which is nice. But for the next couple of days, you're going to hear from some of the smartest experts in the world on a lot of these topics. We're going to be talking about tools and techniques and technologies, some crazy stuff, some really cool stuff. The tools that are available now are more powerful than ever since I started doing web development. They're cheaper, easier to use, better proliferation. It's like an embarrassment of riches with the tools, and there's more coming. We're going to have AR, VR, speech synthesis and recognition, neural networks, computer vision. All of this stuff's going to be available to us practically for free from the cloud for everyone. I mean, virtually everyone is going to have access to stuff that was like science fiction as recently as 5 years ago. So that's great. We're going to have all these amazing tools, and perhaps we pick some to specialize on. But I'll leave you with this thought, which is that all the tools in the world aren't going to do anything on their own. They just lay there. And even if we pick them up and play with them and kind of have fun enjoying the tool, that's not really making any progress if we don't have a motivating principle. So as you're going to the talks over the next couple of days and you're blown away by the tools, learn them. Pick a few to master, but don't worship them. Don't fight about them, please. God, don't fight about them. Angular, Ember, Angular, Ember. It doesn't matter. They're both good. They're for different things. Just pick one that you like, master it, and use it to make the change in the world that you want to see. Thanks.